Chapter 2. The capture. I expected someone would be waiting at home to arrest me for stealing the food, but Mrs. Joe was busy getting ready for Christmas. And where have you been? She asked. Joe secretly crossed her fingers and showed them to me. It was our warning sign that my sister was in a cross temper. I said I had been down at the village to hear the Christmas carols. Mrs. Joe was fixing a fine dinner of a pickled pork leg and roast stuffed fowls. The pudding was on to boil. Clearly no discovery had been made of the missing food and file. At 1:30, I opened the door. Mr. Pumblechook, a well-to-do grain merchant in the village, had come to dine. As we sat down to Christmas dinner, old Pumblechook laid an eye on me. Be grateful, boy, he said, to them which brought you up by hand. With that, my sister began to list the problems I had caused. Just when I felt I might get through the day, my sister stood. You must taste, she said, a nice pork pie. As she went out to get it, I ran for my life, but I got no farther than the door there. I ran into a party of soldiers. They all carried muskets. One held a pair of handcuffs. At the strange sight of soldiers on our doorstep, the dinner party rose. Mrs. Joe came back from the pantry and stared. She quickly forgot the missing pork pie. Excuse me, said a soldier, but I want the blacksmith. These handcuffs are broken. Can you fix them? Are you after convicts, sir? Asked Mr. Pumblechook. 2 of them, answered the soldier. They're out on the marshes. Anybody here seen anything of them? Everybody, except me, said no. No one noticed me. Joe put on his leather apron and took the handcuffs into the forge. Soon he began to hammer and clink. Hammer and clink. When Joe's job was done, he got his coat. He said that we should go down with the soldiers and help with the hunt. Joe and I were told to keep to the rear. I whispered, I hope we don't find them. And Joe whispered to me, I'd give a shilling if they had escaped. Pep, I rode on Joe's broad shoulders. As we moved to the marshes, I looked about. Would my convict see me? Would he believe that I had turned him in? All of a sudden we stopped. On the wings of the wind and rain, there came loud shouts. The soldiers ran forward like deer, and Joe too. Here are both men, panted a soldier. He pointed his gun at the bottom of a ditch. Give up. You too. Water was splashing about. Mud was flying, and blows were being struck. Some of the soldiers went down into the ditch. They dragged out my convict and the other one as well. Both of them were bleeding and panting and swearing loudly at each other. He tried to murder me, said the other convict. He lies, my convict said. He's a liar, born, and he'll die a liar. Enough of this. One soldier ordered, light those torches. Then my convict looked round him and saw me. I shook my head, hoping to show that I had not turned him in. He gave me a look that I did not understand, but I knew I would remember his face ever after. My convict never looked at me, except that once he turned to the soldiers. I wish to say something. I took some food from the blacksmith's over yonder, my convict then turned his eyes on Joe. Are you the blacksmith? He said, I'm sorry to say I've eaten your pie. God knows you're welcome to it, said Joe. We don't know what you have done, but we wouldn't have you starve to death, poor fellow, would we? Pep. We followed the soldiers and their prisoners to the landing. We saw the black prison ship lying offshore like a wicked Noah's Ark. We saw the 2 convicts rowed out and taken up the side and disappear. Then the torches were flung hissing into the water. I never told a single living soul about my convict. I loved Joe, and the fear of losing his trust tied my tongue. First I had been afraid to avoid doing wrong. Now I was afraid to do what I knew to be right. When I was old enough, I was to work with Joe in the forge. Until that time, I did odd jobs. Any money I earned went into a box on the kitchen shelf.